The prison hallway smelled like bleach and bad memories. Officer Callum Raines walked slow, almost unwilling, his boots echoing against concrete. Ahead, cell 214 buzzed with a restless silence, the kind that made your skin itch. Inside sat Garrett Lane, former firefighter, convicted felon, and 3 days from death row. He hadn't asked for much. Didn't flinch during sentencing. Didn't cry when his mother died last winter. But this morning he sent a request. "Can I see my dog? Just one more time." The old Ford Bronco rattled as Officer Raines turned off the main road onto the gravel service path, leading to Miller Correctional. August heat clung to the windows, thick as molasses, the kind that left sweat prints on the steering wheel. In the passenger seat sat a German shepherd named Echo, graying around a muzzle, legs stiff with age, a scar just under his left eye. His ears perked every time the engine revved. Callum glanced sideways. "You sure you remember him, bud?" Echo offered quiet whine. It sounded like regret. The prison loomed ahead like a wound in the earth. Concrete walls bleached white under the sun, a distant smear of guard towers and steel fences. The kind of place where even the wind sounded institutional. Not a single bird dared land on the razor wire. Inside, the hallway leading to cell block D was unusually quiet. No clanging of trays, no shouts, no catcalls through bars. Just the hum of overhead fluorescence and the tap of Echo's nails against the linoleum. Garrett Lane hadn't spoken to anyone in days. Not his lawyer, not the chaplain. He'd turned down his final meal. But this morning at 6:04 a.m., he'd slid a note under his cell door written in blocky, hesitant handwriting. "If it's not too much, I'd like to see Echo one last time. I know what I did. I ain't asking for forgiveness." No one had expected Warden Burrell to approve it. The man barely approved toothpaste. But he had. Quietly. No press. No paperwork. Just a curt nod. Make it discreet. 10 minutes. Something about it didn't sit right with Callum. Echo sat beside him, now, as they stopped outside cell 214. Garrett sat on the bunk, elbows on knees, head bowed. He looked thinner than his file photo. More broken. His hands were cuffed in front, but his posture suggested he'd forgotten they were there. Callum unlocked the door slowly. "Lane, you got a visitor." Garrett looked up, and everything in his face changed. His breath hitched, and his shoulders folded like he'd just been hit. His mouth moved but made no sound. "Echo," he rasped. The dog hesitated for half a second. Then he padded forward. What happened next wasn't dramatic. No sobbing, no music swells like in the movies. Garrett didn't try to run or beg for mercy. He just fell to his knees on the concrete floor and pressed his forehead to Echo's. They stayed like that for a long time, 10 seconds, maybe 20. The kind of silence you don't interrupt. "You got 10 minutes, Callum said gently, stepping back to the far wall. "Take it slow." Garrett didn't respond right away. He stroked Echo's side, whispering things Callum couldn't quite hear. The dog's tail thumped once. Then again, and then Garrett spoke. "You remember how it ended, boy? That fire on Marlowe Street." Callum stiffened. Garrett went on. "I ran back in. They told me not to, said the roof was ready to fall. But you were barking. I could hear you, under the stairs. So I didn't stop. Got you out. Then that kid." Callum remembered that fire. Everyone did. It made the news for weeks. Garrett Lane, the hero firefighter who pulled a boy and his dog from a collapsing building. But the praise hadn't lasted. Not after what came next. "Didn't even know the girl was in the garage," Garrett said, almost to himself. "By the time I saw her. I swear, Cal, I know." Callum flinched. He hated when inmates used his first name. "You said you weren't going to talk about that," Callum said, keeping his voice even. "I'm not," Garrett murmured. "I just need someone to know I wasn't trying to be the villain." Callum didn't answer. He stared at the way Echo leaned into Garrett's touch, like no time had passed. Like he hadn't been ripped from his partner's side 3 years ago when the arrest went down. And then Echo did something strange. He whined low and lifted his paw, pressing it against Garrett's knee like he'd done in training. Alert signal. Callum's brows drew together. "You okay?" Garrett didn't answer. His hand trembled against Echo's collar. Echo whined again, sharper, a single bark. And that's when Garrett collapsed. Callum rushed forward. Lane. The inmate was on the floor, pale, eyes rolling back. Code red. Callum shouted, slamming the emergency button on the wall. Guards storming within seconds, medics close behind. They rolled Garrett onto his back. No bruises, no signs of overdose. But his pulse was erratic. Echo barked again, then growled. He circled once, then pressed his body against the corner wall. Sniffing hard, whining, then growling low. The medic looked up. This isn't cardiac. What is it then? Callum asked. I don't know. Something's shutting him down. But fast. Garrett's lips moved. Callum leaned closer. Locker, he whispered. Echo's locker. What about it? Behind the lining. Then his body seized once and went still. The heart monitor screamed flatline. They called time of death at 2:16 p.m. Official cause, cardiac arrest. But Callum couldn't shake the way Echo had acted, the way Garrett had whispered that last line. That night, after the facility had gone dark, Callum returned to the K-9 unit's old equipment shed. Most of Echo's gear had been locked away after Garrett's arrest. Personal effects, training logs, and his duty harness. He found the old locker near the back wall. Echo paced nervously beside him, tail low, ears twitching. Behind the lining, Callum muttered, pulling out the top shelf. Nothing. He pressed his fingers against the thin metal back panel, and it gave slightly under pressure. He peeled it back and reached inside. His fingers touched something cool and metallic. He pulled it out. A flash drive, taped in duct tape. Label faded but still legible. Marlowe footage, body cam, December 4th, 22. Callum sat frozen. That fire, the one Garrett was convicted after. They said the girl in the garage died because he didn't do a sweep, because he let her burn to save the dog and the boy instead. But if Garrett had this body cam footage hidden, evidence that never made it to court, what else had been buried? What if he'd never gotten a chance to show it? And why had Echo, after 3 years, still remembered exactly where to point? Callum looked down at the shepherd. You knew. Echo didn't move, but his eyes never left the flash drive in Callum's hand. The air in Callum's trailer felt too still, too sharp. He lived just 10 minutes from the prison, out near the tree line where the roads turned to dust and signal dropped off after sunset. Echo paced the floor, restless, like he remembered things the world had forgotten. The flash drive sat on the kitchen table. It hadn't moved in hours. Neither had Callum. He stared at it like it might explode. Garrett's voice still echoed in his head. Behind the lining. That last breath. That twitch of panic before the seizure took him down. The medics hadn't found anything. Toxicology wouldn't come back for days. But Callum had seen enough overdose deaths to know. This wasn't that. This was silencing. He powered up his old laptop, the one he kept for private files, disconnected from the internet. No prison servers. No paper trail. The folder on the drive contained one file, 12_04_22_bodycam_final.mp4. Time-stamped 6:41 p.m., the night of the Marlowe Street fire. Callum clicked play. The video started with Garrett's boots hitting gravel, smoke curling in front of the lens. The helmet cam tilted as he ran. Siren screamed. Flames flickered in the frame. A child's voice cried out faintly. Then Echo barked, loud and sharp, off-screen. Copy, Garrett's voice said, entering south wall. He broke down the back door. The camera tilted as he ducked, moved fast through smoke-choked hallways. He passed a woman slumped on a staircase, scooped her up, whispered something to Echo, who darted ahead. 2 minutes in, they reached a boy under a collapsed beam. Garrett heaved it up with a yell and pulled him out. Echo barked again. Echo, move. He turned back toward the garage. Callum paused the video. His palms were sweating. That garage was where the girl had died. The court transcript claimed Garrett never went near it, that he left with the boy and the dog and never looked back. He hit play again, but this footage showed different. Garrett opened the garage door. Smoke poured out like a scream. He dropped to one knee. coughing, eyes stinging, and crawled forward. There was a figure. Small, huddled, barely visible. "Hey!" Garrett yelled. "It's okay, I'm here. Don't move." The beam dropped from above like a guillotine. The screen went black. Callum sat still. No movement. No breath. The footage cut out 3 seconds after the beam collapsed, but it was enough. Garrett had gone for the girl. He didn't leave her. He tried. He failed. But it wasn't negligence. It was timing. He tried to save everyone. Callum clicked open another folder. On the flash drive, there were court transcripts, 2, medical examiner notes, photos that had never made it into evidence. One document stood out, a scanned email chain between the fire department's chief and the district attorney's office. Subject, urgent, remove footage ref Marlowe. We cannot submit helmet cam _12_04 into the record. Video ends in a way that's emotionally damaging to the jury. Better to lean into the dog boy rescue angle. Girl's death framed as recklessness. Push for plea or trial loss. And below that, understood. File has been archived under seal motion. Per your earlier instructions, we've secured the unit's hardware and deleted local backups. Keep the dog and the footage separate from future narrative. Callum leaned back. They buried it. Buried the truth and let Garrett rot. Echo let out a low whine near the door, ears alert. That's when the headlights rolled across the wall. A black SUV. Unmarked, it stopped 50 feet from the trailer. No one got out right away. Callum snapped the laptop shut. Echo growled, the deep kind where the chest vibrates. Callum reached for his service pistol, heart pounding. The knock came 10 seconds later. Calm, rhythmic. He opened the door with the gun hidden behind his leg. 2 men stood on the porch. Clean suits. Short haircuts. Too polite to be from the press. Too familiar to be just officials. One flashed a badge. Homeland Security. The other just smiled. Officer Raines. Evening. Mind if we come in? Callum didn't move. What's this about? We're here regarding Garrett Lane. And some material we believe was stolen from federal case archives. Callum raised an eyebrow. Stolen? The suited man didn't blink. We're going to need that flash drive. Echo stepped in front of Callum. The man's face barely shifted. Control your dog. No. Callum's hand tightened behind the doorframe. The man dropped a smile. You're obstructing. And we both know that drive contains sensitive files never meant for public record. Files proving you buried the truth? Callum asked, voice low. Neither man answered. By the time they left, empty-handed, Callum had already removed the drive and slipped it into a hollowed-out Bible near his fireplace. He waited another hour, watching the woods, until their SUV vanished down the road. He didn't sleep. The next morning, he drove to the only man he trusted more than himself, Sheriff Walter Griggs. Retired, 83 years old, half-blind, but still sharper than a switchblade. Griggs lived in a red-brick farmhouse east of town. Callum found him on the porch with a cigarette and a radio playing Merle Haggard. You look like hell, Griggs said. Is it about Lane? Callum handed him the flash drive. Griggs turned in his palm like it was radioactive. I think he was murdered, Callum said. Griggs nodded. Me too. You think the prison knew? I think the people who buried that footage have reach. And friends and places you don't even want to whisper about. Echo lay down beside Griggs, eyes half closed, ears still twitching. Griggs exhaled smoke. You're going to burn for this, son. Maybe. You gonna stop? No. Griggs smiled without humor. Good. Bring the dog inside. We got work to do. That afternoon, Griggs made a dozen calls, quietly, carefully, to people who owed him favors. Former fire chiefs, journalists, one ex-prosecutor who hated the way Lane's trial was handled. That night, Callum got a call from Warden Burrell. The old man didn't mince words. I gave you 10 minutes with Lane out of decency. Not a damn press pass. Callum said nothing. You know what you found. You also know it doesn't change the sentence. He was executed 3 days early. A pause. Heart gave out. No, Callum said. Someone helped it give out. Another pause. Then forget what you saw. Let the man stay dead. Click. The next morning, Callum drove to Marlowe Street. The house was still there, or what was left of it. Charred beams, a collapsed frame, scorched grass, ghosts in every crack. Echo hopped out of the truck stiffly. He sniffed the ground, circled the ruins like he knew them still. He stopped near the garage. Scratched once. Callum followed. There, half hidden under an old tarp, was a burned metal box. Fireproof. Fused shut. He pried it open with a crowbar. Inside were ashes, dog tags, a melted badge, and a child's shoe. He sat down hard. Everything Garrett tried to save. Everything the system let burn. And tucked beneath the shoe, water-stained but intact, was a photo. Garrett, Echo, the little boy, the girl, all smiling. Callum stared at it for a long time. Then he tucked it into his pocket, stood up, and whispered, "I'm going to tell them everything." Echo wagged his tail once. Just once. Rain fell in sheets by the time Callum reached the courthouse steps. The sky hung low and bruised, as if mourning something it didn't yet understand. His boots squelched across the wet pavement. Echo followed at his side, stoic and slow, wearing his faded K9 harness, the same one from the fire. Clutched in Callum's hand was a small folder. Inside it, the flash drive, a signed affidavit from the retired Sheriff Griggs, the sealed fireproof photo from Marlowe Street, a handwritten letter Garrett Lane had once sent to his public defender, one the court never received. By the time he entered the foyer, 2 guards had already stepped forward. "You're not clear to be here," one said, eyeing the dog. Callum opened the folder just enough to show the judge's seal. Judge Karen Bell, emergency hearing authorization, signed just 30 minutes earlier. The guard blinked. "Jesus, that's real." Callum nodded. "Get me a recorder and someone from Internal Affairs. Now." The courtroom was empty except for 4 people. Judge Bell, stone-faced and sharp-eyed. Warden Burrell, arms folded, sweat purling under his collar. A reporter from a county paper, Danielle Morris, known for being quiet until it mattered. And Callum, who placed a folder on the table like it weighed 100 pounds. Echo sat in the aisle, tail curled, watching. "You're telling me," the judge said, voice clipped, "that the evidence in this folder would have exonerated Garrett Lane?" Callum didn't blink. "I'm saying it would have rewritten the entire trial." He laid out the flash drive, documents, the email chain that hinted at an intentional suppression of evidence, the photo, then the letter, dated 2 months before Garrett's sentencing. It read in part, "I never meant to be a hero or a monster. I tried to save them all. I know I failed, but I didn't leave her. I want my dog to be with someone kind when I'm gone." Echo doesn't forget people. If he still waits near that wall, maybe someone will wonder what he was trying to tell them. The room fell silent. Then Judge Bell looked at Burrell. "Warden, were you aware of this?" His jaw clenched. "I was aware of conviction. That's not what I asked." He hesitated. "There were sealed files. I didn't question the DA." Danielle, the reporter, scribbled furiously. Echo barked once. All heads turned. He was standing now, ears alert, eyes locked on the courtroom side door. A shadow moved behind the frosted glass. Then it opened. An older man stepped through. Tall, wiry, a scar on his chin. Callum stiffened. Chief Willard. The retired fire chief hadn't been seen publicly in years. Rumors swirled. Some said he'd taken a payoff. Others said he was forced out. Willard looked like a man holding his own funeral. "I heard what's happening," he said softly. "I should have come forward sooner." Judge Bell narrowed her eyes. "You were involved?" Willard nodded. "The DA told me the footage was too emotional. Said if it showed Lane failing to save a girl, it would tank our chances at conviction. But I saw the full footage. He tried. He went for her. I signed off on the seal." "Why?" "They told me we needed a clean story. Firefighter saves dog and boy, fine. But throw in a failed rescue of a girl? You muddy the narrative. They wanted a villain, not a tragedy." Danielle stopped writing. "You realize," Judge Bell said coldly, You helped execute an innocent man. Willard bowed his head. I know. 3 days later, the story broke. Exonerated. Garrett Lane died before truth could save him. Whistleblower fire chief reveals botched prosecution. Sealed evidence. The dog who never gave up. Echo became a quiet symbol in the small town, not of loyalty, but of grief, of memory. Callum declined all interviews. So did Griggs. They'd done what needed doing, and it had come too late. A posthumous pardon was issued. A statue planned for the courthouse lawn, a small bronze of a German shepherd sitting beside a firefighter's helmet. But it wasn't enough. It never would be. 2 months later, Callum drove out to the cemetery alone. He parked beneath the oaks, the air thick with humidity and the hum of cicadas. Garrett's grave was simple. No flowers. No marker yet. Just a wooden stake with his name burned in. Garrett Lane, 1984 to 2025. He just wanted to see his dog one last time. Echo padded forward and sat beside it. Callum knelt, resting a hand on the headstone. They know now, he said softly. It's out there. You're not forgotten. Echo let out a soft sound, somewhere between a whine and a breath. Callum stood, but Echo didn't follow. He stayed, pressed against the grave. Still, Callum waited. 5 minutes. 10. Then he knelt again and whispered, Come on, boy. Echo didn't move. His breathing had slowed, chest rising and falling in long, labored rhythm. Callum pressed a hand to his fur. It was warm, then cooler, and then still, just like that. He was gone. They buried Echo beside Garrett the next morning. Not with pomp, not with flags. Just a collar, a badge, and the photo, the one from the fireproof box, sealed in a plastic sleeve. The girl's family came. Quietly. They cried. So did the boy, now 16, taller, still carrying that scar on his cheek. And as the earth was packed over the graves, the sky opened up, and for the first time in weeks, it rained like it meant something.